Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering draft video. This is how to draft MTG. Today I have a draft format update for Bloomburrow for you. Some folks in the comments requesting that I make a video to give an update on what's changed in the format and what the best archetypes are. So here we are doing that today. As always, you can support the channel by clicking like, clicking subscribe, and leaving a comment just to say hello or to let me know what you want to see, what you want me to cover. I've grouped the archetypes into tiers based on data from 17 Lands that is now available, 17lands.com if you're not familiar. Great resource. I'm going to be doing a more in-depth video on each of these archetypes, so stay tuned to the channel if you want to see that. But to give you an overview of the format, in Tier 1, we've got white-green rabbits as the very best deck, black-green squirrels as close to the very best deck, but slightly in second place, and black-red lizards in third place. In Tier 2, we've got white-red mice, white-black bats, blue-green frogs, and red-green raccoons. In Tier 3, we've got blue-black rats, white-blue birds, and in very, very last place, maybe even a Tier 4 deck, is blue-red otters. You can also go back and check out my draft guide video, which I will link in the description below if you want to see a more in-depth coverage of the cards in the set. So looking at this tier list here, we could see that it is most desirable to start with black cards and green cards in the draft, as these are going to give you the most possibilities to end up in a tier 1 archetype. Following those, we want to start with white cards or red cards if we can, as white and red each have a tier 1 archetype and 2 tier 2 archetypes. Thinking about archetypes in tiers in this way is also helpful for pivoting in the draft. For example, if we start with some good green cards, pick up a couple of white cards, but then all of a sudden white is not happening at the table, we're not seeing any good white anymore, we can switch maybe into green-blue, start drafting a tier 2 deck, end up with a good deck at the end of the draft. Another example might be starting with really good red cards in the draft, but not seeing any good black cards. In that case, we want to try to pivot into red-white or red-green, but still try to avoid blue, as red-blue is a very weak archetype in the set. Of course, we want to avoid blue where possible early in the draft, because the only desirable blue deck is blue-green, and even then we're relying pretty heavily on green cards to make that deck work. Based on that archetype tier list, let's look at some uncommons and commons that we're going to be interested in picking early in the draft. These are going to be cards in green and black mostly that are flexible and fit into many different decks. We've got Hunter's Talent, the 1 and a green enchantment that comes down and has a creature you control deal damage equal to its power to a creature you don't control. It can then level up and take over the game from there. Thoughtstalker Warlock, the 2 and a black 2/2 that makes them discard, and if you've dealt damage to them, you get to choose what they discard. Wix Patrol, 4 black for the 5/3. When it enters, you mill 3, and then it shrinks a creature of theirs based on the greatest mana value in your graveyard. This is almost always going to kill something for you, and if you're in a deck that can support it with a little bit of self-mill, you're going to get to deal with whichever creature you want from your opponent. Downwind Ambusher is the 3 and a black 4/2 with flash. When it enters, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn, or you destroy a creature an opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. Really easy to set up a combat where your 2/2 is being blocked by their 2/2, you shrink theirs and win the combat, or maybe they attack you with 2 1/1s, you get to flash this in, block a 1/1 and kill the other 1/1. Well, you just got yourself a 3-for-1. Just a lot of power in this card and much better than it looks. Take it highly. Fell is the 1 and a black sorcery that destroys any creature. Just really flexible, really efficient. Overprotect. This is a card I didn't talk about in my first video. This is 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature you control gets +3/+3, trample, hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn. This really fits well into any green deck, but especially green-black, green-blue, or green-red, where the decks are going a little bit bigger, a little bit more of a mid-range style. You're investing more mana into your big creatures. You want a way to protect them. A couple of really good rabbits cards here. Harvest Right Host, 2 and a white for a 3/3. When it or another rabbit you control enters, target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and you draw a card if this is the second time the ability has resolved this turn. Carrot Cake, This is a huge common for white that I missed on in my original video. This is 1 and a white for a food artifact. When it enters and when you sacrifice it, you get a 1/1 white rabbit creature token, and you scry 1. And of course, you can pay 2 mana, tap it, and sacrifice the food here to gain 3 life. So this obviously works super well in rabbits. It's giving you 2 bodies on 1 card. It can double trigger your Harvest Right host, so you get to draw a card. It has some synergy with the green cards that want to forage, and it even gains you some life, which black-white really likes as well. At common here, we also have Cash Grab, 1 and a green for an instant. Mill 4 cards. You may put a permanent card from among these into your hand. If you control a squirrel or return to squirrel, you get a food token. This obviously fits really well in the black-green squirrels deck. Of course, it gives you forage, fodder, it gives you a food, finds the card you need, but it's also really quite good in blue-green and red-green, as the card selection is quite valuable, and the food token you can find something to do with, or the life that it provides is really quite nice as well. This is a premium common for green, and currently it's coming around the table pick 6 or later, so this is a great little reward for being in a green deck. Savor is the premium black common removal spell, 1 and a black for an instant. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, and you create a food token. Getting the food, of course, is huge in black-green squirrels, but also in black-white bats, as it cares about the life gain, and even in black-red lizards. Sometimes gaining that 3 life is the difference between winning and losing in aggro race. Hop to It is a premium uncommon for the white-based decks. It's 2 and a white for a sorcery, makes 3 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens. This is at its best in green-white, but honestly, all of the white decks in this format really center themselves around the rabbits go wide token theme. So even something like white-black or white-red, you're going to want to have a package of cards that make a lot of rabbit tokens and care about rabbit tokens, so this just fits well into any of those decks. In the draft, you could just start taking rabbits cards and decide what your support color is a little bit later on. It doesn't have to be green-white. And the first blue card we're going to talk about in this video, Shoreline Looter, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 rat rogue, can't be blocked. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, and then you discard a card unless you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. Not going to talk about very many blue cards today, but this is probably the best of them. This is quite good in blue-green, as green has a few different ways to pump this up, put +1/+1 counters on it, etc. It's great in blue-black, as blue-black wants to get to threshold. It's quite good in blue-white, as white is trying to pump up creatures without flying. And in blue-red, well, you're probably not drafting that anyway, so don't worry about it. Got a few premium removal spells here in black and red. We've got Consumed by Greed, 1 black for an instant. Target opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control, and if you gift them a card, you get to return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Feed the Cycle, 1 and a black for an instant. As an additional cost, you have to pay a black or forage. You get to destroy target creature or planeswalker. And Rabid Gnaw, 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Good in any deck, as it's going to push damage and kill something, but particularly good in red-white, where you care about targeting your own stuff. Intrepid Rabbit is the 2 and a white 3/2 with Offspring 1, and when it enters, target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This is just an excellent card at a baseline, 2 bodies for 4 mana, and pumps up a couple things, but has additional synergy in the best deck in white-green, as it's making multiple rabbits for you. You can double trigger your Harvest Right hosts, and in white-red, targeting 2 of your things is really quite valuable with the Valiant mechanic. Galewind Moose, just a big boy here, 4 green for 6/6 with Flash, Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. Really, any green deck wants this, but particularly green-black and green-blue, the more mid-range, longer game focused decks. Bright Blade Stoat is the 1 and a white 2/2 first strike lifelink. This is just good anywhere. All the white decks want this. Pick it highly. And you're also pretty happy to take the Signpost Uncommons for the best archetypes pretty early. I wouldn't necessarily take them over any of the cards I just mentioned, as they're not as flexible, but these are Vine Reap Mentor, black-green for a 3/2. When it enters or dies, you get a food token. Burrowguard Mentor, green-white for a Star Trample, power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control, and Fireglass Mentor, black-red for the 2/1. At the beginning of your second main phase, if an opponent lost life this turn, exile the top 2 cards of your library, and you get to play one of those cards. I also want to talk about some flex picks. These aren't the most powerful cards in the set, but even later in the draft, when you can, you want to stay flexible. You want to stay open to different potential decks and not lock yourself in too early, as you can really get rewarded for being in the right archetype later in the draft when players can't take the cards that work for your deck. And you could really get punished by locking in too early and then having your archetype be cut by a couple of other drafters at the table. So look for commons that, even if they're not the very best cards in the set, fit into a lot of different decks. These are cards like Baker's Bane Duo, the 1 and a green 2/2. When it enters, you make a food. Take out the trash. Probably looked at as a premium removal spell by most people, but red's not the most desirable color, so you may see this a little bit later. 1 and a red for an instant deals 3 to target creature or planeswalker. Sometimes you get to redraw a card if you control a raccoon. And Tree Guard Duo, this was a little under my radar. This is 3 and a green for a 3/4. When it enters until end of turn, target creature you control gains vigilance and +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. Stats are just really good in this set. Like 3 mana 3/4 that makes something bigger by even like +2/+2 or +3/+3. It's just a solid card, and of course it goes nuts in the green-white rabbits deck, but this fits anywhere. Head of the Homestead is the 5 mana 3/2. When it enters, you make 2 rabbits. Just good anywhere, especially in the rabbits deck, of course. Glide Dive Duo is 4 and a black for a 3/3 flyer. When it enters, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Works really well in white-black bats, of course, but also a great way to just close out a game in red-black lizards, and is a solid card on rate, so even blue-black's going to be happy about playing it. Green-black's probably going to have better options, but this still does fit there as well. Warren Elder, 1 and a white for a 2/2 rabbit. You can pay 3 and a white to give your team +1/+1. Of course, it's great in the rabbits deck, but really just good anywhere. Good stats, and the ability to push damage later in the game is really nice on this one. And the final flex card I want to make note of here is Fountainport Bell. This is not an early pick. You should be taking this pick 6 and beyond, I would say, but you can play this in lieu of your 17th land if you don't have too many 1-mana cards. This is a single mana for an artifact. When it enters, you may search your library for a basic land, put it on top, and then you can later pay 1 and sacrifice the bell to draw a card. There's a lot of stuff you can do with this card. You don't have to put the land on top, so late in the game this is just 2 mana to draw a card, which is pretty nice. You can also hold control on MTG Arena to hold priority and sacrifice the bell before searching for the land. So if you've got some unspent mana for the turn and you're looking for something else to cast, it might be useful to draw the card first before you lock yourself in with a basic land on top. Or maybe you're looking for a couple of different colors of mana, you don't know what you want to choose. If you crack the bell first, you might find the color that you need, and then you could search for the other color that you're looking for. Thanks so much for watching. As always, click like and subscribe to support the channel. Leave a comment with your feedback. Let me know what you want to see, or just say hello. You can always reach out to me at howtodraftmtg@gmail.com if you have any questions or would like to inquire about private coaching. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.